Have you ever wondered what it would take for the oppressed to rise up against one of the most brutal systems of slavery in the Caribbean? In 1816, the enslaved people of Barbados launched a revolt that would challenge the island's colonial power like never before. Bussa's Rebellion was not just an uprising, it was a testament to courage, leadership, and the unbreakable human spirit. For several days, thousands of enslaved Africans united under a visionary leader to fight for freedom, justice, and dignity in the face of overwhelming oppression. Led by Bussa, an enslaved African and skilled field laborer, this rebellion spread across plantations in Barbados, threatening the foundation of a society built on the exploitation of enslaved people. Today, we'll uncover the story of Bussa's Rebellion, exploring its causes, key events, and lasting legacy, a story of resistance that continues to inspire even centuries later. To truly understand the legitimacy behind Bussa's Rebellion, we first need to see the harsh reality the enslaved faced in Barbados. By the early 19th century, Barbados had become one of Britain's wealthiest colonies, fueled by sugar production. Enslaved Africans labored tirelessly from sunrise to sunset under unbearable conditions. Punishments were severe, from whippings to imprisonment, and even death for minor infractions. Families were separated without warning, children were born into bondage, and every day was a battle to survive. Imagine a mother watching her child taken from her, a father forced into back-breaking labor under the scorching sun, or a brother witnessing his sister punished for refusing the overseer's demands. This was the life imposed on thousands of enslaved people. Fear and oppression shaped every aspect of life, yet the human spirit refused to be fully broken. African heritage of enslaved people. Despite the horrors of slavery, the enslaved Africans carried their rich cultural heritage across the Atlantic. Many were of African descent, with knowledge of leadership, spiritual practices, and combat strategies from their homelands. These traditions helped build resilience and fostered a sense of community among enslaved populations, even under relentless oppression. It was this heritage that allowed leaders like Bussa to emerge, figures capable of inspiring and organizing a rebellion that would shake the foundations of colonial power. African roots became a source of strength, courage, and hope, fueling the unquenchable desire for freedom. Previous resistance. Resistance in Barbados did not start with Bussa. Enslaved people often rebelled through subtle acts, working slowly, sabotaging tools, or escaping into the wilderness. Stories of revolts in other Caribbean islands, particularly Haiti, spread across the region, showing that freedom was possible. Maroon communities, where escaped enslaved Africans lived free and defied colonial authority, served as powerful examples. These smaller acts of defiance created a blueprint for Bussa's full-scale uprising, a rebellion born from decades of struggle and determination. If this story of courage and resistance moves you, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you won't miss more incredible historical accounts. Now let's explore the causes that sparked Bussa's Rebellion. Harsh treatment and exploitation. The immediate cause of Bussa's Rebellion was the extreme brutality endured daily by enslaved people. Laborers worked from sunrise to sunset in sugarcane fields under the searing Caribbean sun, often with inadequate food, clothing, or rest. Punishments were merciless. Whippings, beatings, and imprisonment were commonplace, and even minor mistakes could lead to death. Imagine a young boy, no older than 12, watching his father chained and whipped for dropping a cane bundle, or a mother forced to watch her child punished for nothing more than crying. This constant suffering forged a simmering anger and a deep yearning for liberation. It was this unbearable treatment that transformed despair into a powerful drive to resist and reclaim humanity. Leadership and organization. Bussa was far more than a field worker. He was a natural leader whose charisma, intelligence, and courage inspired trust and unity among thousands of enslaved Africans across Barbados. He understood that successful resistance required not just bravery, but careful planning, communication, and coordination. Drawing on knowledge of African military traditions and the experience of community leadership, he organized enslaved people into disciplined groups capable of confronting colonial militias. His leadership transformed ordinary laborers, people who had spent decades in chains, into a cohesive and formidable force. Bussa's presence provided structure, strategy, and moral guidance, reminding the enslaved that freedom was not an impossible dream, but a goal worth risking everything for. Eyewitness accounts describe how his words and example emboldened men and women to face overwhelming odds, each act of courage echoing the determination of a people who had suffered in silence for generations. Imagine risking everything you've ever known, your life, your family, your very survival, for a chance at freedom. This was the reality for Bussa and his followers, and what they did next would shake Barbados to its core. Inspiration from other revolts. Even under the harshest oppression, enslaved Africans drew courage from uprisings elsewhere in the Caribbean and the Americas. The Haitian Revolution, in particular, became a beacon of hope. Stories of enslaved people overthrowing colonial powers, establishing self-governance, and claiming freedom ignited the imagination of Bussa and his followers. These tales were more than history. They were living proof that resistance was possible. Lessons in strategy, unity, and perseverance were gleaned from these revolts, and Bussa used them to shape his plans. Every whispered story of rebellion fueled the belief that the chains of slavery were not eternal, and that their fight, though dangerous, was justified and achievable. Timing and opportunity. The timing of Bussa's rebellion was as critical as his leadership. European conflicts, economic pressures, and stretched colonial defenses created a rare window for the enslaved to act. Plantation owners were distracted, militias were limited, and the social tensions created by overwork and deprivation had reached a breaking point. Bussa recognized that every day spent in chains was another day of suffering, and that decisive action could turn long-standing oppression into a coordinated fight for freedom. By seizing this moment, he enabled a revolt that impacted multiple plantations simultaneously, giving hope to the enslaved and shocking the colonial authorities. This convergence of courage, leadership, and opportunity transformed what might have been scattered resistance into a moment of historic defiance, a rebellion whose significance would echo for centuries. Here are the key events of the rebellion. Outbreak of the rebellion. On April 14, 1816, Bussa and his followers launched a coordinated strike across several plantations in Barbados. Armed with whatever they could find, machetes, hoes, axes, and sheer determination, they rose against their oppressors. Plantation houses were attacked, enslaved people were freed, and chaos spread through the estates. The rebels were risking everything: their lives, their families, and everything they had known. Imagine decades of being treated as property, of witnessing the suffering of loved ones, yet summoning the courage to fight back, knowing that capture or death could come at any moment. Each act of defiance was more than a fight, It was a claim to humanity, a refusal to remain shackled. Stories from survivors speak of people joining the revolt after seeing Bussa's bravery firsthand, motivated not just by anger, but by the hope of reclaiming freedom for themselves and their families. Spread. The rebellion quickly gained momentum, spreading across the island and uniting hundreds under Bussa's leadership. Enslaved people from multiple plantations coordinated attacks, sharing intelligence and exploiting knowledge of the local terrain to evade militias. This strategic cooperation turned the uprising from isolated incidents into a large-scale rebellion that threatened the very heart of the colonial system. Villages and plantations felt the tremor of resistance as news of the rebellion inspired solidarity among the oppressed. The movement revealed a remarkable lesson. Even under extreme oppression, collective action and courage could challenge the seemingly invincible structures of colonial power. Colonial response. The British authorities reacted with force and urgency. Militia units armed with muskets and trained soldiers were dispatched, and plantation guards reinforced the crackdown. The ensuing battles were fierce and bloody. Despite being poorly armed, Bussa's rebels fought with relentless courage, knowing that the cost of failure could be death. Each skirmish illustrated the determination of enslaved people to seize freedom, as well as the brutal measures the colonists were willing to employ to maintain control. Witnesses later recounted scenes of desperation and valor, small groups holding off larger forces, families fleeing together through dense forests, and the unyielding spirit of a people refusing to be crushed. Bussa's death. Tragically, Bussa was killed during the uprising. His death was a devastating blow, shaking the morale of the rebels and disrupting their coordinated efforts. Yet even in the face of this loss, resistance did not end. Many survivors escaped into the hills, fought in smaller bands, or continued acts of defiance in secret. Bussa's leadership and courage became a rallying symbol, reminding everyone that the fight for freedom was larger than one man. His sacrifice inspired hope and defiance, planting the seeds of resistance that would endure for generations. Aftermath of the rebellion. Although the rebellion was ultimately suppressed, its impact resonated deeply. Many participants were captured and executed, and plantations tightened control to prevent further uprisings. Yet the message of Bussa's rebellion could not be silenced. Enslaved Africans were capable of organizing, strategizing, and fighting for liberation. Bussa himself became an enduring symbol of resilience, courage, and defiance, a reminder that even in the most brutal conditions, the human spirit could not be broken. The rebellion left a legacy of hope and resistance that continued to inspire the fight for emancipation. The results of Bussa's rebellion were profound, with both immediate and lasting effects on Barbadian society. Short-term consequences. Immediately following the rebellion, plantation owners and colonial authorities intensified surveillance and enforcement. Militia patrols increased, punishments grew harsher, and families were often torn apart as fear rippled through the enslaved population. Yet amid the terror, the story of Bussa's courage spread like wildfire. It became a whispered legend among the enslaved, a testament to the possibility of resistance even under the harshest oppression. Mothers would tell their children of Bussa's bravery, keeping alive the hope that freedom was attainable. Long-term consequences. Bussa's rebellion left an enduring imprint on Barbados and the wider Caribbean. Among enslaved populations, it became a story of courage, resilience, and defiance, a legacy passed down for generations. For colonial authorities, It revealed that enslaved Africans were capable of strategic planning, unity, and determination. The revolt contributed to a growing awareness that slavery was neither uncontested nor sustainable, fueling the momentum toward emancipation. It also strengthened the sense of cultural pride and identity among the enslaved, showing that even in chains, they could resist, organize, and demand justice. Historical legacy. Bussa's name has endured as a symbol of resistance, courage, and the relentless pursuit of freedom. His rebellion challenged colonial authority and proved that enslaved Africans could fight for dignity, humanity, and justice, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Centuries later, Bussa's rebellion remains a beacon of hope, illustrating the unbreakable human spirit and the universal yearning for liberty. It is a story that reminds us that courage, leadership, and unity can ignite change, and that the struggle for justice is timeless. Bussa's rebellion reminds us that even under the harshest oppression, courage, leadership, and unity can ignite change. If this story inspired you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more incredible stories from history. Share your thoughts in the comments. What other tales of courage and resistance do you want us to explore? Remember, history is not just about dates, it's about people who refuse to give up, just like Bussa.